The kitchen smelled like rosemary and slowly simmering soup, a scent that had filled their home for 30 years. Elena sat at the small pine table, watching Marcus. He was standing by the window, his frame thinner than it had been only a few months ago, watching the neighborhood children ride their bikes on the cul-de-sac. They had reached the stage of his illness where the doctors stopped talking about fighting and started talking about comfort. It was a shift that had terrified Elena for weeks, but tonight, the air felt different. Marcus turned around. He didn't look like the man who had climbed mountains with her in their 30s, but his eyes held a clarity that was almost unnerving. He pulled out the chair across from her and sat down, his movements deliberate. "I finished the last of the books," he said softly. Elena looked up. "Which one?" "The one about the history of stars. It's funny, El. We spend our whole lives worrying about the finish line, terrified of the end. But the stars, they burn through everything they have, and when they go, they scatter the very stuff that makes new life possible. They don't just disappear, they transform." Elena reached across the table, her hand resting on his. Her skin felt paper thin, but his grip was still firm. "Is that supposed to make me feel better?" she asked, her voice cracking. "Because it mostly just makes me miss you already." Marcus smiled, that crooked, lopsided smile that had made her fall in love with him in a drafty coffee shop in 1996. "It's not meant to make it hurt less. It's the truth of things. We are finite creatures, Elena. That's not a tragedy. It's the context of the story. If this went on forever, would the soup taste this good? Would the light hitting that vase right now look this beautiful?" He squeezed her hand. "I've spent the last few weeks mourning my own life. I was angry. I felt robbed. But yesterday, I sat on the porch and just listened to the wind. I realized that my mortality isn't the enemy. It's the final brushstroke on the canvas. It's what gives the picture its shape." Elena wiped a stray tear from her cheek. "I don't know how to exist in a world where you aren't walking through the front door." "You will," he said, not with dismissal, but with a quiet, grounded certainty. "You'll exist in it because you've carried so much of me with you already. Every habit you have, every book you love, every way you laugh, those are echoes of us. When I'm gone, I won't be somewhere else. I'll be in the way you remember to breathe when you're overwhelmed. I'll be in the silence when you're reading." They sat in the quiet of the kitchen, the reality of the situation pressing against them like a physical weight. But for the first time, it didn't feel like a suffocating force. It felt like an invitation to pay attention. They spent the rest of the evening not discussing treatments, or wills, or the terrifying logistics of the inevitable, but simply recounting the mundane. They talked about the day they lost their keys in the park, the time the ceiling leaked in their first apartment, the precise shade of blue the sky was on the day they got married. They were treating their remaining time not as a countdown to a disaster, but as a final, concentrated celebration of what they had been given. They were learning together that acknowledging the end didn't mean giving up on the living. It meant that every cup of tea, every shared glance, and every soft word carried a weight and a sweetness that eternity could never provide. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long amber shadows across the floor, Elena realized that Marcus was right. The fear was still there, a low hum in the background, but the overwhelming sense of loss had softened into a profound, aching gratitude. They weren't just waiting for the end. They were witnessing the final brilliant act of a life well lived. End of part 1. Please like and subscribe.